Hello all, welcome to August, Pinch Punch, first of the month. In today's episode, we'll go over some polite ways to make requests and remind ourselves what an imperative is and test ourselves with a little quiz. So let's go. Section 1. Polite and effective ways to make requests in British English. Whether you're chatting with colleagues, asking for a favour from friends, or making formal requests at work, using the right phrases can make all the difference in sounding natural and polite in British English. I've got a breakdown of versatile ways to ask for things, from ultra-polite to casually friendly, along with examples for different situations. These will help you navigate everything from emails to everyday conversations with confidence. Firstly, formal requests, so work, emails, customer service. So polite and professional phrases could be, could you kindly provide me with, for example, could you kindly provide me with the latest sales report? Alternatively, you could say, I would be grateful if you could. Example, I would be grateful if you could send me the meeting notes. Another option would be, would it be possible to? Example, would it be possible to extend the deadline by a day? Or perhaps, might I request? For example, might I request your assistance with this matter? And finally, if it's not too much trouble, could you... For example, if it's not too much trouble, could you review my draft? In a customer service setting, you could use, I was hoping you could help me with. For example, I was hoping you could help me with a refund. Or, is there any way you could... For example, is there any way you could expedite my order? Secondly, semi-formal requests, so with colleagues or acquaintances. So we've got a selection of friendly but still quite professional phrases. So we could use, do you think you could? Example, do you think you could forward me that email? Or, would you mind? Example, would you mind sharing your notes from the meeting? Or perhaps, could I ask you to? Example, could I ask you to proofread this for me? Or what about, any chance you could? For example, any chance you could cover my shift tomorrow? And thirdly, some casual requests. You might use these with friends, family, for everyday situations. So we've got some relaxed and informal phrases like, can you grab me? For example, can you grab me a coffee while you're out? Or, mind if I borrow? Example, mind if I borrow your charger? Or perhaps, could you do me a favour and... For example, could you do me a favour and pick up my package? Or perhaps, you got any... For example, you got any extra napkins? Or what about, hook me up with? This is more slang. Hook me up with that recipe. Some phrases you might use at perhaps a restaurant or a cafe could be, I'll have... For example, I'll have the chicken sandwich, please. Or perhaps, can I get... For example, can I get a refill on my drink? Now for some more indirect requests. These are subtle, less demanding. For when you don't want to impose. So we could use, I was wondering if... For example, I was wondering if you'd be free to chat later. Or, if it's not too much trouble, for example, if it's not too much trouble, could you check this for me? Or what about, no rush, but whenever you get a chance, So, for example, no rush, but whenever you get a chance, could you send me the file? And finally, we've got some persuasive requests, when you need a yes. So we soften the ask. So we could say, it would really help me out if... For example, it would really help me out if you could lend me your car. Or perhaps, I'd really appreciate it if you could vouch for me. Or what about, would you be willing to? For example, would you be willing to join our project? So I hope this rough guide makes requesting things in British English feel a bit more intuitive. The key is to match your tone to the situation, whether it's a formal email or a quick chat with a neighbour. If you'd like me to expand on any specific scenario, for example, pub etiquette, professional follow-ups, just let me know. Happy practising, and don't forget, even native speakers mix these up sometimes, so keep it light-hearted. And remember, please and cheers go a long way, even with strangers. Section 2. Do this, read that. Master the imperative in English. Sit down. Have a biscuit. Listen closely. What do all those sentences have in common? They're not just things your nan might say. They're imperative sentences. They're short, powerful little commands used constantly in English. But here's the twist. In British English, how you say them matters just as much as what you say. So what's an imperative sentence? It's a sentence that gives a command, instruction, or request. You'll hear them everywhere. Close the door. Pass the salt. Stop talking. And a classic British, mind the gap. They often drop the subject, you, and go straight to the verb. So instead of you sit down, we just go to sit down. So some common imperatives you'll hear in everyday English are come in, take a seat, have a look, don't worry, let me know, keep going, be quiet, watch out, please wait here. Now, you can add that please to soften them slightly. So you might not want to say move, because that sounds too rude, but if you say move please, it's more polite-ish. But if you say could you move please, that's very British. Or I'm terribly sorry, would you mind just moving a touch? So the RP pronunciation and intonation tips here are to stress the verb at the beginning. It's the action verb. So, for example, sit down, have a seat, stop talking. So you use a falling intonation at the end for a firm, confident tone. It sounds finished and clear, not anxious or uncertain. So, for example, come in, be careful, don't touch that. But if you use rising intonation on an imperative, it can sound more like a question or even passive-aggressive. Close the door? So, are you saying this because you're unsure, or are you being a bit sassy? So, imperatives in British culture, we use them a lot in signs and public announcements. So we've got keep off the grass, mind your head, take your ticket to the counter, stand clear of the closing doors. Hello, London Underground. They're direct, but in the UK we often soften imperatives in conversation to avoid sounding too bossy. So instead of give me the pen, you might say, could I borrow your pen for a sec? It's the same meaning, but it's less forceful. Now, if you'd like to master your British accent, my British accent bundle includes audio, video and speaking exercises that teach you how to stress the right word nail that British falling tone, use connected speech in everyday phrases, and so you'll sound natural and confident and never robotic or rude. So go to learningbritishaccent.com/bundle to sign up. Section 3. Quiz. Can you spot the imperative and use it right? Fancy taking a quiz to test your knowledge on those imperative sentences. I'll put the link to the full quiz in the show notes, but remember you will need to be a member of the British Accent Bundle to access the full quiz on the website. But let's do a couple of questions here and now. So question 1, which of these is an imperative sentence? A, she will sit down. B, sit down. C, are you sitting down? Or D, I sat down. So which of those was an imperative sentence? A, she will sit down. B, sit down. C, are you sitting down? Or D, I sat down. Did you say B, sit down? That is correct. Question 2. What's the best imperative for politely offering food? Could it be A, eat this. B, try some. C, you should try. D, will you eat? So what's the best imperative for politely offering food? A, eat this. B, try some. C, you should try. D, will you eat it? The correct answer was B, try some. Finally, question 3. Which imperative is most commonly heard on public transport in Britain? Is it A, please be silent, B, hold tight, C, mind the gap, or D, sit carefully? So which of these is the imperative most commonly heard on public transport in Britain? A, please be silent. B, hold tight. C, mind the gap. Or D, sit carefully. Did you say C, mind the gap? You'd be right. Well done. So don't forget the full quiz is available on the website, link in the show notes. Section 4. Don't bother me. Or is it disturb? Or interrupt? So imagine this. You're in the middle of something important, sipping tea, watching the telly, or simply daydreaming in peace, and someone walks in and says, sorry to bother you, sorry to disturb you, sorry to interrupt. So which is correct? Which sounds too formal? Which is just awkward? So let's untangle this polite little trio. Bother, disturb, interrupt. What's the difference? Well, they all involve someone stopping or affecting what you're doing, but each one has a slightly different flavour. Bother means to annoy or inconvenience someone, often about something small. So we use it when you're checking if your presence or question might annoy someone. So, for example, sorry to bother you, could I ask a quick question? Or, I didn't want to bother her while she was working. So the tone is informal and gentle, and it's very common in everyday speech. Bother, bother. Get that TH sound in the middle of the word correct. And that final at the end is the soft schwa. Never bother. Okay, number 2 is disturb, which means to interrupt someone's peace or rest or privacy. So we use it when you're worried you might be intruding or disrupting something calm or private. For example, I hope I'm not disturbing you. Or on a sign you'll see it, do not disturb. Now the tone for this is more formal, it's polite, it's slightly distant. So disturb, disturb. That sound in the middle is quite long, like in turn or girl. Keep it round and smooth. Disturb. And then we have interrupt. Now this means to break into someone's speech or activity, often suddenly. So we use it when you stop someone mid-conversation or in the middle of doing something. For example, sorry to interrupt, but you've got a phone call. Or, he interrupted me in the middle of my story. How rude. Now the tone of this is slightly more direct. It's often used when you're cutting into speech. So, interrupt. The stress is on the last syllable, interrupt. The middle ter is soft. We hear that fast schwa sound again. Interrupt. So let's do an example from the real world. So we might hear a voicemail message which goes, "Hi Sarah, sorry to bother you so late. I know it's after 9. I just wanted to check if you've seen my charger. I think I may have left it in your car earlier. If I'm disturbing you, no worries. Just text me tomorrow. Oh, and I didn't mean to interrupt your dinner if you're eating. Anyway, no rush. Just let me know when you get a chance. Cheers." Now, do people confuse them? Yes, but it's not a major catastrophe if you do. Common mistakes: using disturb in casual chat. Sorry to disturb, but can I borrow your pen? This sounds a bit odd and overly formal. It would be better to say, sorry to bother you, but can I borrow your pen? Maybe you mix up interrupt and bother, so you might say, sorry to bother, but can I say something? It's okay, but it sounds slightly weird, slightly off in a conversation. It might be better to say, sorry to interrupt, if you're cutting in. And maybe you're overusing disturb when interrupt is preferred. So you might say, don't disturb me while I'm talking. That's grammatically fine, but a more natural way might be to say, don't interrupt me. Well, that's it for another week. As a quick reminder, if you do like the podcast, please consider making a donation in the links in the show notes. Podcast ad earnings are pretty hopeless at the moment, and I do understand why so many independent podcast creators like myself are calling it a day. And of course, you can always join my British Accent bundle if you'd like more pronunciation guidance to develop a great British accent. Go to learningbritishaccent.com/bundle to join. Well, I hope you have a super week. See you soon. Bye for now.